So there's something I wanted to bring into light today, and I kind of want to do a video on educating on DID on media apps. That and a little bit of my own history, and showing some things that are dangerous on TikTok. Is it safe to educate on DID if you haven't had the proper diagnosis or healing strategies? So let's start at the beginning of DID issues related to me. And I will add in some education and links from www.emptymemories.nl, www.sitecentral.com. So I'm using resources to explain how DID works when you're younger and how educating on it may not be healthy. So we're going to jump right into this, and this is from different psychologists talking about DID, and it states here, previous studies on patients with dissociative identity disorder have provided only cursory descriptions of their educational performance. 10 adult outpatients with DID were interviewed to discover educational problems experienced from grad school through postgraduate school. A structured interview explored demographic data, academic achievement, conduct and behavioral problems, interactions with teachers and peers, dissociative symptoms, and physical health. Most reported significant problems with school performance. To facilitate a diagnosis, investigators of DID in children have developed a number of childhood symptom checklists, or disassociation scales. Fagan and McCann, Kluft, Peterson, Putten, Helmner and Trickett, Reger, Kasten, and Morelli. Dissociative symptoms of childhood DID include amnesia, time loss, trance-like behavior, hallucinated voices of their personality states, disavowed behaviors, marked changes in personality, referring to the self in a third person, variations in abilities, inconsistent school performance, symptoms of depression, multiple somatic complaints, and post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms such as flashbacks, traumatic nightmares, avoidant behaviors, and vigorous startle responses, and hypervigilance are also common. Conduct and behavioral problems also occur and include truancy, lying, sexual prerogative, explosiveness, and disruptive or oppositional behavior. There is usually a history of childhood trauma, particularly childhood sexual abuse and neglect. So, here it states, Putten and Horstein noted that in situations demanding continuity of attention in dissociatively disordered adolescents, that their trance-like episodes led to misinformation and confusion. Putten viewed the children's fluctuational abilities, shifting preferences, and inconsistent knowledge to be the result of the state-dependent memory retrieval in dissociative disorders. Furthermore, such children were often diagnosed as having learning disabilities, even though close inspection of the educational testing data frequently revealed that evidence for a learning disability was inconclusive. Coons confirmed earlier findings of Hornstein and Putten and Dell and Eisenhower by showing that school and behavioral problems affected most children and adolescents that showed symptoms of DID. Furthermore, Vincent and Pickering and Kluft believe that children and adolescents with DID may have rapid responses to therapy, requiring only weeks and or months for integration. This, together with their knowledge of high morbidity associated with DID in adulthood, led them to suggest the need for further research to facilitate identification and screenings of high-risk groups of children to promote early diagnosis and treatment in those that they may suspect have DID but don't. So next I'm going to show you a couple clips that I found on TikTok. And I'm keeping it brief, and remember, this is just for educational purposes only, and for entertainment purposes only. I ask that you do not attack these people. However, this is false information, and the reason for that is psychologists and therapists, because of their years and years of learning and studying with patients that they learned from in order to have more education on DID, they will explain to you. You must first have a diagnosis of complex post-traumatic stress disorder / PTSD in the DSM to have a diagnosis of DID. So the information that's being given from these videos that I'm about to show you are false information. You have to have trauma to have dissociative identity disorder. Why? Because you have to be diagnosed with PTSD / CPTSD usually first. Okay? What comes with PTSD, CPTSD? Trauma, severe trauma. And everybody that I know and the people that I know that are legitimately diagnosed and disabled or have DID have been diagnosed with previous issues like PTSD, BPD, blah, blah, blah. So I just want to point that out. So here's the videos of wrong information.
How are systems formed without trauma? Thanks for your question. We'll show you. A good, more medically based example of a non-traumagenic system is something like autogenic or neurogenic. A neurogenic system is a system that formed as a result of their neurodivergence or from mental illness. Not exactly from trauma, but
Well, DID is a disorder of hiddenness. So in many cases, people with DID will go unnoticed, and that's really most common. For clinicians, people who are sort of assessing, commonly we will see people with multiple diagnoses over time. Of note, on average, it takes 9 years after a person is first treated for an accurate diagnosis of DID to occur. So people are often carrying diagnoses like bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, PTSD. So that's a common, one of the things I would look out for in considering DID.
we are undiagnosed. Most of the systems that we know are undiagnosed. I'd say 9 out of 10 systems, like in our circle, like out of every 10 systems we know, 9 of them are not like they're not diagnosed, and they're never going to get a diagnosis because the mental health system is garbage and they do not know enough about. Is there a way to figure out if you're a system or not without going to a psychiatrist? Absolutely there is.
So next I want to get into a little bit of personal awareness of DID and a little bit of my own history. And again, this is based on that research I talked about earlier about the studies that they're doing. And it states here, none of the people were aware of nor received a formal diagnosis of DID during grades 1 through 12. However, 4 of the 10 adults reported a personal awareness of DID symptomology while in grades 1 through 12. Subject 4 said, I didn't know I had DID, but as early as preschool, I knew there was something wrong, and from the first grade on, I thought I was crazy. Subject 6 said, I wasn't aware of DID, but I knew there were different parts and different names. I thought everybody was like that. Subject 7 said, in high school, I knew there was something going on. I saw different handwriting, heard voices, and was called by different names by various students, but I didn't know about DID then. Subject 8 said, wasn't aware of the DID, but remembered losing time and watching an altar while in grade school. In middle school, she was aware of different names and of different parts being in charge, and by high school, she was aware of inner arguments. So here these subjects talk about the difficulty with courses, tasks, skills, and concentration. Subjects remembered having difficulty with certain courses, tasks, skills, or concentration in grade school compared with 8 in high school. Subject 8 had difficulty with English, grammar skills throughout her academic career. The basic information was just gone, she said. It felt like I had missed something. Science and problem solving was difficult for subject number 4. I didn't understand what I was supposed to do. Comprehending the instructions was difficult. I was afraid of doing things wrong. Subject 5 says, I was diagnosed with a learning disability, and he wonders in retrospect if it was attributable to his DID. Subject 7 had difficulty with concentration in middle and high school, which she attributed most of her sexual and emotional abuse to be the issue. What I find interesting, which relates to my own story, is these 7 subjects talk about the difficulties they had with teachers, and how some were put in, high levels of education, and then all of a sudden the next year being brought into like a special class because they couldn't control or remember things, or they would lose memory over a weekend or a couple of days. So that was very interesting. Now next we're going to get into the school records. Basically, I have examples of that, which I will show after I'm done reading these articles out of this research. How school records are very important to date back that you've already had symptoms of DID even though you didn't know you have it. And it states here, school records were available for 6 subjects. The high school graduation rank was correctly remembered in the only 3 cases variable by school records. Grade average was correctly remembered by all 6 cases verifiable by the school records. Absences per year were correctly remembered in 2 of the 3 cases variable with the school records. One of the few records containing any teacher's written comments of behavior described the student as having below average seriousness of purpose, industry, intuitiveness, influence on others, responsibility, and emotional stability. Now, the reason I felt that was important is you're going to see next my own school records, and I will circle things that you'll notice in these records. Number 1 is the fluctuating of my grade levels. In some I failed tremendously, in some I was excelling like beyond. That's the thing with DID. Certain alters and certain split alternative states in your mind collect things, work on things, and even dig into things to feel connected to something. So certain subjects they would excel at, and certain subjects they weren't. So like per se, I would go into English, I would keep failing, but then an alter would take over at certain times, and all of a sudden the grade would go up again. So these are things that they study, your therapist and psychologist will get into. They can date back these issues that you had in school. Another thing you will notice is teachers mentioning things and little comments and absences. You will also see in my preschool records, prior to getting into preschool, that there seems to be a problem with my comprehension of things. And so the teachers were wondering if I needed to be put into EEN, which is a special program for young children. And as you can see, I'm struggling with gross motor and fine motor skills for some reason. And then all of a sudden, I take the tests, retake the tests, and I'm fine. So there's already around the ages of 4 or 5 years old, an inconsistency of my behavior. So I guess the question is, after all that education, do we really want somebody educating on dissociative identity disorder that is self-diagnosed, a person in their adult sense that hasn't done much learning, and people that are finding misinformation and believing it? The other thing I want to bring into awareness is people that do educate on DID should have permission from their psychologist, a therapist, or even family support before even doing that kind of work. Because the thing is, if they don't feel you're ready emotionally and you're not stable enough to handle the internet drama, you shouldn't be educating on it. And if you don't have the education under your belt or the studying or the work on it, you shouldn't be educating on it. Keep in mind, we are not therapists. All we can do is guide and show methods of healing that we've learned from our own experience. So when you go on TikTok and media apps, especially TikTok, watch what you're watching, because it can give you misinformation. It can lead you to believe you even have a mental disorder. And because of the issue of wanting likes and followers and attention with DID is an issue. If you are not fully healed and you have enmeshment issues and codependency issues, here's the thing, there's a lot of health issues that come with DID and a lot of mental issues that come with DID. And I always tell people it's a symptom within a symptom, okay? What happens is you're so alone and you feel so unloved that you will seek out attention from anybody that will give that attention to you. And the younger you are, the worse it is. The thing is, I've seen people on TikTok, and I've seen one recently, crying because she can't get her memory together. Crying because she doesn't know what to do about her disorder. Yet the next day she's giving educational tips, talking about how she knows how this works and that works, and then degrading other people that she don't believe is accurate. That's a problem. If you're not healed, you shouldn't be educating. And here's the other thing. I recommend, if you're going to do what I do, make sure your therapist or psychologist is aware of what you're doing, so they know that what you're doing is healthy or not healthy. The thing is, I've had years and years under my belt. 20 years I fought with this. 8 years of intense CBT, EMDR, DBT, and EFT. I've put extensive amount of work into getting better, and I still am. There are days that I'm down. There are days that I don't want to do things, and that's normal with this disorder. But I don't stop and I don't quit because I want to get better. I want to live a normal life. Integration is possible. It's just you have to put the work into it. All the techniques and the knowledge that I put into my videos are legit research from legit people. I don't just make this stuff up. It's a very hard and enabling disorder. The number one thing is, before I let you go, is you have to learn to love yourself and your alters before you have any chance of helping anybody else. And the thing is, it's really not your job to help these other people. All you can do is guide them, help them that way. That's all you can do. You can't heal people. You're not a therapist, and you're not a psychologist, and nor is it your job to be that. It's not your job to save people. All you can do is give them your experience and your knowledge and continue on. So, I hope you found this video useful. You're more than welcome to use it in your therapy. And that's all I got today, guys. Loves. Bye.